box, big enough for me to crawl into. It might have held a fake Christmas tree, neighbor's TV, or holiday imperishables from the Sally Ann. I was 10, making a house in the living room. Cut out a window, opened a door. "Look at my box," I called to my mother, and her friend put down his drink, chided, half slurred, "Don't say that," in a tone that begged me to ask why. "Don't say that," he said again. And in the pause, while he raised his glass in slow-mo and drank, eyeing me, I sat back on my heels and glimpsed the fourth wall, a spare self watching a trashy play. "Cut it out," my mother said. "She's just a kid, swatting the wasp after the sting. I'm just a fucking drunk." His line. Everything doubled. Obscene. Sublime. No safety in words then. And more room. Trigger warning. The sun was shining outside, or it was raining. There were windows, but none of them opened. I was wearing clothes, but I was naked that first day back in the classroom after the shooting. The next story we were scheduled to read was "The Things They Carried." And when I stood before them and opened my mouth, I gave what was the first trigger warning before I knew what such a thing was. The story had guns and violence in it, and I didn't know if they'd want to read it now. Should we read it? Or should we strike it? No answer. I asked again. Silence. They were looking through me as though I were the window, and I was looking at them like they were a door with an unanswered phone ringing behind it. They wouldn't have names anymore because I was afraid to love them. Finally, somebody said, "We don't care." Nobody disputed this. I was silent for a long time. Then I got my paper cup of coffee, raised it to my mouth, and poured it down the front of my blouse. Teaching philosophy, revised. After the shooting at my school, which was sometime after and sometime before shootings at other schools, I'd observe my students as they abstained from taking notes, slogged through an exam, or zoned out, while I soft-shoed my way through tropes and figures. I began to see them, as perhaps the flight attendant during the performance of the in-flight safety monologue regards the suits, reading papers, row upon row of heads, hooked up to gadgets, and lighting on one face. On an exhale, I'd say to myself, "This is somebody's child." Nostalgic for the speed-bird rigor that fueled my early years of teaching, now I also reckon its cost in missed connections, in the time lost composing my final comments on papers not collected, stowed in file drawers where my mantra, "Be as precise as possible whenever possible," fades away like contrails in the ether. I think, if I teach nothing else today, let me show compassion to somebody's child. And, in case poetry may save as many lives as floor-level lighting and safety hatches, let me be as philosophical as the flight attendant, my near double in the sister city of work, as I cope with constraints of space and time in a milieu fraught with risk, attending to the needs of people who want to get somewhere else, yet might still enjoy the flight. Descent. My baby was still nursing, and I'd lean over the bed's steel rails to give him the breast, let him twist his fingers in my hair until he slept, anchored by electrodes, gauze bonnet, fat snarl of wires, twisting into a Bob the Builder backpack that housed the track-it box near the call switch. I could not leave the ward, though they urged me to go home, get a shower, change. At night, an infrared video camera captured our quiet ballet. I could not leave. On the third day, I was sent down to the basement, to the abandoned locker room. Past the heavy steel door that would not quite close, I stood under exposed ducts, frazzled fluorescent tubes in a ship's bilge. Whiff of mildew, occult drip. In the dim light, I found the one narrow shower stall, the slick edge of the torn plastic curtain, pulled it back. No one to hear me. My baby lay in a bed flights up, electrodes pasted to his scalp, helmeted in gauze. I stripped, hung my milk-sour tracksuit and hospital towel on a hook, stepped over the lip onto a flattened shopping bag spread like a lily pad on the blackened grout, institutional green tiles. The first cold water, my baptism. Miracle. Walled in by plexiglass, we warmed vinyl until the intercom garbled our son's name. The door hummed like a grade school teacher with a pitch pipe, and we pushed through into a white hallway lined with close-ups of daisies. The psychologist had an accent, East Clinical or impending retirement. I couldn't quite place it. She asked our 2-year-old to push a toy stroller to her door. Things went downhill from there. He dropped toys, wouldn't pick them up. You must make him, she insisted. Use hand-over-hand technique. We can't tell if he's willful or if our bidding to him is as the wind to the ocean floor. It's not okay to cross the street after the signal. Someone says goodbye, it's the time to reply, not long after, she averred. The long after poet in me hugged the mother in me, deflated by the psychologist's prediction of assisted living. You look sad, she said, less observation than sugared jeer. No, I said, swiping the emoticon for sandbagged from my face. I reached for the disability tax credit forms she held out like cocktail napkins. My husband said, what I hope for him is that he'll be able to have a relationship, connect with someone. She had the look of a croupier raking in chips for the house. Barring a miracle, said the psychologist, he'll be a good candidate for a special needs school. You a psychologist or a psychic? Long after, in this poem, I can say that. In her office, though, beyond plexiglass and the mandatory umbrella check, I said goodbye, ran to my afternoon class, arriving dazed, rain splattered in my coat, to teach the assigned poem, Pied Beauty. Reading Hopkins aloud to fresh, unworldly faces, this time when I got to all things counter, original, spare, strange, the skin of my life caught in the teeth of the poem, and it sang through me. My first daughter, after Browning. Joe Kennedy Sr. That's my first daughter sitting behind me, looking as happy as the rest. Rosemary. Unlike the others, slower to roll, crawl, talk. An army of tutors taught her all she knew of reading, writing, maths, and such. She didn't shine at school or home, too much for her. 4th grade math and 5th grade English, her limit. Eunice, wanting to distinguish Rosemary, pronounced her best teeth and smile. She was beautiful, could pass for normal. Kids included her as crew when they'd compete, though she couldn't row or cut her own meat or hold her own at the dinner table. In 39, it was still bearable. I wish you'd bring it here so I can see it. Since the stroke, just thoughts, if I could say it. That one was shot at Eden Rock, Antibes, a little paradise. In May, the Debs wore Molyneux gowns to dine with the king and queen. A month in Eden Rock, last fling before the war. We're holding the gold here, each of us bathed in slanting light before the shit hits the fan. Joe Jr. and Jack, over from Harvard, the whole clan, before Kick gave her hand to an Anglican. Yes, that worked, rose up quite a bit. Right off the bat, I wrote to Kick, "You are still and always will be tops with me. The truth is, it pays to be a winner, and Kick won." Her catch was heir to the Duke of Devonshire. Match point, I thought. If you want to make money, go where the money is. Turned out a sorry business, though. Her Billy dead before he inherited the dukedom and sired an heir. And then to lose our best girl Kick, too, so soon after the bloody war took Joe. And now I've watched Jack and Bobby cut down on TV. Every time I turn around, death. And me in a crank bed having my ass wiped. Pull my gown down in the back. Try to put yourself in my place. I thought it would help, the procedure. She was out of control, escaping at night, coming home with leaves in her hair, becoming a woman, getting fat. Rose would have died. Joe Jr. wouldn't have had a chance. We tried everything. Freeman and Watts had success with others. With Rosemary, they messed up royally. For 7 years, we kept her at Craig House. Then we put her in the care of the nuns at St. Coletta's, Wisconsin. I couldn't visit. Of course, the children knew it was forbidden to ask. You learn what rules to break. I've never talked. I earned, so they could serve and attain eminence. If Eunice had balls, she'd be president. Museum of Kindness. 1. There isn't one. I Googled, because my 9-year-old girl, thumbing Life Through the Ages, pointed to a double-page spread featuring a guillotine, a condemned man, shirtless, face down on the bascule, cinched by the lunette, haloed by the straw basket set to catch his head, beside a cart holding 3 other bound men, and said, "Cool," in early tween blasé. Might have been a Radvad bread slicer, a few loaves of pumpernickel. Check out the revolutionary officers chatting like cops ordering takeout. 2. Museum of Medieval Torture, for those who like to think it doesn't happen today. 3. Killed with kindness? Bless your heart, they say in the South. 4. Brick is more dear than breath in this world. Then there's the philosophical question. What might qualify as instruments of kindness? Welfare? Morphine? A cup of tea? A roll of quarters at the soap opera laundromat? A basin and a sponge? There's still room in the suggestion box. 5. I peel 2 Moroccan clementines because my son can't peel them himself. He'd bite into the rind, stop loving what he now loves easily in his chafe-charged world. With the tip of a butter knife, I pry out the hard, star-shaped calyx that can puncture my probing thumb. Then the rind, fresh spray misting the countertop, my hands. Gently strip off the pith like flocked wallpaper. Impatience gouges, exposes the pulp. I want the dimpled surface, zenith to nadir, of each sphere. I groom it, hold it intact before poking my thumb into the divot at the top. Halving the fruit, I pull its thready pith from the central axis, segment and hold each crescent to the light like a suitcase on the conveyor through security. If he bites a seed, goodbye, clementine. Knife performs the odd lumpectomy. In a Ziploc, on an ice pack, in his lunchbox, stash the flawless lunule, 20 little bridges between his hands and mine. 6. When I was 21, in Nice, and afraid to fly home, barfing into a garbage can on a busy sidewalk outside the Nice Étoile, a woman, Patty Smith beautiful, came up to me, asked in English, "Are you all right?" Put a clutch of Kleenex in my palm and was gone. 7. O common finch, on concrete below skyscraper, you are like only yourself. 8. We've been invited again to our friend's Swedish julpissel, a party to putter around making stuff for Christmas, gingerbread, cookies and house kits, bowls of candy, tubes of icing, and marzipan arrayed on a crisp white cloth on the dining table. Children stand over or kneel on chairs over their work, smearing icing on a rooftop or cheek. Adults drink wine, scarf open-faced salmon and dill sandwiches, or lose themselves in avant-garde cookie art. Our children love the festivities, the decorate one, eat one sugar rush. Jolly, my daughter says, pressing Skittles into icing shutters. My son slaps lampshades, running between the Dala horses in the front room and the sweets table. Cobra hands, a babysitter dubbed him. His one never-fail word, again. My husband and I take turns as designated shadow to our little runner. This is his happy scream. I can glue that. For our family, invitations are understandably rare. Unwanted, Dickens or Henry James might say, knowing something about exile and inclusion. Each man is a half-open door leading to a room for everyone, Tranströmer wrote, in a rare show of optimism. Sometimes our host, though he doesn't drink, makes glögg, dims the lights and flames the brandy. We feel the warmth of this ritual as the flame shoots up, and Peter stands back, the hush, as he ladles mulled wine, raisins, almonds into mugs, passes them down the table. Berkeley sends us home with a plate of shortbread, pepper cacker, lemon bars, chocolate truffles. How can it be that, every year, I fail to send a thank you card? 9. There'd be a wing devoted to the best intentions. I think if it existed, we'd go.